shooting. Ronaldo! Unbelievable! Oh, Messi! Penalty! That is a massive decision. I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again.
Welcome to Left Foot Finish. I'm Mike. So the Glazers have finally sold Manchester United. Now, it's not all of it. It's just a piece. But, hey, it's a start. And I think that's a good thing. Local boy Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his sporting group now have a 25% stake, just beating out the previous Saudis with a bid of $6.3 billion. I believe the Saudis weren't going to go above $6 billion, which, you know, what could you buy for $6.3 billion that you couldn't buy for $6 billion? I don't know, but as always, money talks. But I think this is a good thing. I think having somebody local in United, because of the history, because of everything that the Red Devils stand for and have been, somebody local who understands that is good. And it's not somebody who's part of the old guard, which could be kind of a problem, as we saw when they brought in Ryan Giggs' interim, Ollie, Michael Carrick, things like that. So this could be greatly beneficial. But again, it's still too early to tell. For too long, there has been a huge disconnect between the Glazers and the United faithful. Not only the faithful, but the club itself. As a huge American business organization, the Glazer family just looks at United as an investment, a dividend, rather than what it actually is, a club, a meaningful club that means something to the people of Manchester, that has a history of winning ways that has been lost. And it means something to people, not only in Manchester, but across the globe. It's not just something for them to park cash and pull out dividends. So having Ratcliffe and his group, who, by the way, have a good history of sporting experience and knowledge of winning ways. They have a very successful cycling team. They're part of the Mercedes F1 group. They've also got interest in other footballing clubs in Europe and Africa. I think this would be a very good thing. But before all that, and I know everybody's really excited about the big cash injection and all the big transfer signings that they're going to make and, you know, spending all this money, yada, yada. Well, let's pump the brakes here, because I think there's a bigger problem that is only starting to be addressed. The success of any club, in any sport really, comes from the top down. And this has been a systematic failure from the top down, from the Glazers right down since the end of the Fergie era. Fergie was such a big personality that he was able to control everything and make decisions, and wise ones. And that was the best part about Fergie, is he found ways to win with the new and different teams, adapt or die. Ronaldo even said when he came back that nothing had changed in the 10 years of his absence. And you can't do that, especially in the sport of football. Why is that? Is it because Fergie was gone? Possibly. Could be part of it. But mostly it's because the Glazers have never shown any interest in the club. They're hardly ever there. Nobody lives in Manchester. I'm not saying that they have to live in the same city, but at least, you know, pretend like you like what you've got. So there's been no direction. There's been no vision. If anybody's curious as to why all these major managers have failed at Manchester United, well, that's why. It's great bringing in a big name like Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, but when you've got no support, when you've got no vision, when you've got no identity, and no support in creating that identity, then of course you're going to fail. And that's what we're seeing with Erik ten Hag. For as good as he was in Ajax, this is a completely different game. And maybe he's been given too much rope, again, possibly because of the Glazers' disinterest. So hopefully him and Ratcliffe can work together, and if it's not him, it's the next guy. And maybe it'll be somebody better, because there's a major problem in United. And before Ratcliffe and his team start spending a bunch of money, I think they really got to look at what is the vision, what is the identity of this club. If you've watched any games from last season to now, what are they? I have no idea, other than boring, and not boring in a good way, i.e. defensive. There's no passion, there's no creativity, there's no pace, there's no finish. There's no speed. There's no interconnectivity. There's no chemistry. You play United, it's like playing somebody on FIFA who just picked it up and barely knows the basics of football. I don't see it. I don't think anybody does, not even the players themselves. For all of Erik ten Hag's success in Ajax, this is, with all due respect, this is a different club. It's a different league. They played great in Ajax. It was such a fun team to watch, with lots of intermovement, intricate passes, short passes, give and goes. You know, don't want to bore you with the minutia of football tactics, but of course it worked there. And it was the Dutch league, and it worked in Champions League too, because I don't think people were expecting it. And they played with such speed and ferocity that it took some teams aback a little bit. Try to translate over to United. Well, who do they have? Really, who's there? that could maybe exercise this. And you'd think that some of these players are able to do it, but it's just not there. And I don't think Ten Hag has been able to get that identity across or get buy-in, and bringing in people that he used to work with, i.e. Anthony and Onana and Ajax, is not the way to do it, especially when you're overpaying for these guys. You watch this United team and there's no drive, there's no passion, like I said. So what's the point? What are you watching? There is no hope. And that's always what gets you. It's the hope that gets you. Anytime you put a little bit of hope in this team that something's going to happen, i.e. this whole Ratcliffe sale, that's when they break you. So before they go and spend a bunch of money on more players that just aren't going to work out, let's figure out what they are. And I think that has to be a major conversation with the new sporting group, leadership, and Ten Hag. And like I said, if it's not Ten Hag, then it needs to be somebody else. And to me, I don't know if it is. This has been a bit of an embarrassment since his taking over. And I don't want to knock all the players. I mean, some of them have been pretty good. Luke Shaw is always reliable, and Garnacho really plays with a lot of drive and heart, but he's young, and that's what you expect, and he's just not there yet, skill-wise and experience-wise. There's some stuff that he can continue to learn, and to Anthony's credit, he does want the ball, but he just does nothing with it. Again, there's no creativity like there was in Ajax. When you're playing against teams like Manchester City and Arsenal and even Chelsea now, who have identities and you know what they are, and they're playing for something, in Tottenham, for Christ's sake, without Harry Kane, you're just not going to do well. So with the introduction of local boy Ratcliffe and his understanding of what United at least once was, and his connection to the community and to the city and to the club, maybe some of that heart and desire and passion will come back. And with that in mind, you've now got yourself the basis of some sort of team or club identity and are able to buy the right players. And granted, they're in a bit of a hole now from all the money spending they did in the summer, but it's still possible for them, and maybe there's a reset next year. I think there has to be. The focus definitely has to be on FA Cup, as that's the only trophy that's left, and there's a match on Monday, which they should win, but we'll see. And maybe some people are looking at it that investments from the Saudis might have been better because there's apparently infinite amounts of money there. And yes, that worked at places like PSG and more famously City, and then we'll see how Newcastle shapes up. But I think those clubs are different, especially City. You had a team that, never really did much, was always the afterthought in Manchester. So, of course, pumping in a whack ton of cash, and you saw it took them time to build up to where they are now. That cash didn't change things overnight. I don't think that was the answer with United here. The Glazers have lots of money too, and look how that's worked out. So having another foreign investment who doesn't have full control of the team or full say just would have been another misdirected step for United. And I think there's willingness to turn it around from Ratcliffe and his group, specifically because of that connection. So it is something to be cautiously hopeful, let's just say. Do I think this is the saving moment for them? Too early to tell. My heart wants to say yes, but it's always the hope that kills you. There's a lot to be fixed with this club, with this fantastic, phenomenal, historic club whose fans don't deserve to have somebody middling like this. I certainly hope they can turn it around. My personal opinion, I think it's Ten Hag has to go, and they need to bring in a new voice that can bring in some sort of drive and get through to players and bring in that identity. And maybe they shouldn't be holding on to certain players the way they are. I mean, I love Rashford and Martial and the rest of them, but just because they were yours and you bought them young, or they came up through your youth system, in Rashford's case, who was a United supporter back in the day, he knows what this club means to that city. But sometimes you get too locked into that investment because it's your investment, and maybe you shouldn't. They're not young anymore. They're not prospects. They're full. Like, this is who they are. And I think a change of scenery would do good for both. And we've heard that before. Oh, United just needs a refresh. But they've tried it unsuccessfly. It's just a collection of players now. It's just a collection of players collecting a paycheck, playing. If you've ever played 11-a-side soccer, in your adulthood where there's no practice or anything, and everybody just kind of vaguely remembers how to play soccer, that's what you're watching. That's what United is. A little more injection of youth, or relying on players that had success elsewhere that just don't fit with what you're trying to do, is the way that Ratcliffe and his group should, I think, move forward. I hope for the sake of Manchester, for the club, and for the league, and fans around the world, including myself, that Ratcliffe and his team are able to turn it around. But again, final warning. Careful how much you hope. See you next time.
Beauty. Ronaldo! Unbelievable! Oh, that's it! Penalty! That is a massive decision.